Chapter 6. The Forge Beneath the Battlefield. The road to the forge began with a map that did not want to be read. This, Gale would later insist, was not unusual for infernal cartography. Maps made in the hells, he explained, often developed opinions. Directions resented being followed. Landmarks sulked if misnamed. A road might move 3 leagues to the left simply because someone had looked at it too hopefully. Astarion, upon hearing this, declared that he had never related more strongly to a road. At the time, however, Karlach had no patience for moody geography. The map hovered above the archive floor in the House of Hope, red gold lines turning slowly through the air. It showed Avernus in layers, the open wastes, the old battlefields, the buried roads beneath them, the scars where ancient war machines had died and been built over and died again. At the lowest layer, far beneath a plain called the Field of Teeth, a forge mark pulsed like a wound. Karlach stared at it. The mark answered by glowing brighter. "Oh, piss off," she said. The map flickered. Wyll glanced at her. "Did you just offend the map?" "It was looking at me funny. It has no eyes." "Then it was doing it with the vibes." Hope leaned over the edge of the archive table, chin in her hands, eyes wide and bright. "Maps have vibes. Some maps lie, some maps flirt. One map tried to marry the pantry, but Yurgir frightened it into becoming a curtain." Yurgir grunted from the doorway where he stood with arms folded and broom nowhere in sight, thank the gods. "It was a weak map." Flo, perched on the back of a chair as if furniture existed only to frame her silhouette, blew a thin stream of smoke from a long black cigarette. "Raphael collected the dramatic ones," she said. "Maps, souls, grudges, waistcoats. No restraint." Wyll stepped closer to the glowing lines. "The forge is beneath an active battlefield?" "Active," Yurgir rumbled. "Old battles do not end in Avernus. They only lose track of why they began." "That's cheerful," Karlach said. "It is accurate. Same thing down here." Hope reached up and tapped the forge mark. The map snapped at her finger. She snapped back with her teeth. "Rude little thing," she said. "It says the way is blocked." Flo smiled. "No, darling. It says the way is expensive." Karlach looked at her. Flo lifted one shoulder. "A distinction with teeth." Wyll's mouth tightened. "What kind of price?" The map pulsed. The blueprint still hung beside it, Karlach's engine turning in transparent red and gold. Valves, seals, heat channels. The architecture of her captivity made pretty and precise enough to make a person sick. Hope took the spoon from around her neck and pointed it at the schematics as if addressing a suspect. "Speak nicely." The schematics hissed. Hope hissed louder. Yurgir gave a low, approving grunt. The lines rearranged themselves. A second shape appeared beside the engine. A set of clamps like ribs, a core like a small sun, and a ring of sigils designed to bite into living flesh without killing it quickly. Wyll went very still. Karlach saw his face before she looked at the image properly. "Hey," she said, "don't do that." "Do what?" "Look like you're already at my funeral." He looked at her then, and the forced calm in him hurt worse than panic would have. "I am reading the design." "Uh-huh." "It appears invasive. Most things in hell are. Doors, furniture, emotional conversations." "Karlach." She stepped in front of the blueprint, blocking his view with her body. "Look at me instead." He did. For one breath, the entire infernal archive seemed to vanish. No maps, no biting rooms, no old contracts. Just Wyll's eyes fixed on hers, dark and full of everything he was trying very hard not to say because saying it might make it real. She softened. "Oh, soldier." "That forge was not built to save people," he said. "No. It was built to make weapons." "Yeah." "And if we put you in it—" "When?" she said. His jaw flexed. "When?" he allowed. because he loved her enough not to steal the word from her. If something goes wrong, something always goes wrong. That is not comforting. Comfort's not the thing right now. What is? Karlach looked past him at the schematics, then at Hope's serious little face, Yurgir's stone-set jaw, Flo's two bright eyes, the map pulsing beneath old war. Chance, she said. Wyll closed his eyes. Just for a moment. When he opened them again, the blade was there. Not the old performance, not the leash-shaped hero Mizora had praised and pulled, but the man who had walked into hell with her and kept walking. Then we do it properly, he said. Karlach's smile twitched. There's the voice. I do not have a voice. You absolutely have a voice, Flo sighed. He has at least 3, darling. This one is the I have decided to be noble and inconvenient voice. I like that one, Hope said. It has buttons. Wyll looked faintly pained. Buttons? Metaphor buttons. Don't press all at once. Yurgir stepped forward and jabbed one claw toward the forge mark. Enough, if we go armed, fast. No loose songs. Hope opened her mouth. No songs, he repeated. Hope shut it again, cheeks puffed. Flo tapped ash into a silver dish that had not been there a moment before. He says that like songs are the greatest danger. They are, Yurgir said. Karlach pointed at the map. What's between us and the forge? Yurgir leaned over it. Old machines, bone fields, devils scavenging the dead engines. Perhaps worse. Lovely. The forge will be guarded. By what? Yurgir smiled. It was not comforting. Things that remember being useful. In the tavern, Astarion lifted one elegant finger. I would like to state for the record that when an enormous murder creature says a thing like that, one should reconsider the outing. You weren't there, Karlach said, and yet I am correct. Gale puffed his pipe thoughtfully. The phrase does suggest constructs, possibly semi-sentient infernal automata, war remnants animated by residual command magic. Astarion stared at him. You heard things that remember being useful and got excited. Intellectually. That is worse. Shadowheart leaned toward Karlach. Did you reconsider? Karlach grinned. Course not. Wyll sighed beside her. She considered for perhaps 3 seconds. 3 very full seconds. She said, and I quote, if the murder machines want to remember being useful, I'll help them forget. Astarion sat back, satisfied. That sounds like you. Thank you. It was not praise. Taking it. They left the House of Hope at what Hope declared was morning, though Avernus made no observable effort to agree. The party was strange enough to make even devils stare. Karlach walked at the front, axe over one shoulder, brass token around her neck, jaw set toward the impossible. Wyll walked beside her, blade at his hip, every line of him too calm to be calm at all. Flo trailed behind them in her cabaret finery, as if battlefield expeditions were simply another kind of performance. Hope marched with a satchel full of biscuits, keys, chalk, spoons, and at least one object that hummed when Wyll looked at it too long. Yurgir brought up the rear, enormous and grim, wearing no apron now but somehow still carrying the moral weight of having worn one. Flo trailed behind them in her cabaret finery, as if battlefield expeditions were simply another kind of performance. Pity, Flo said, glancing at him. Yurgir did not slow. Speak. The apron had character. I will break your stage. I have many. I will break them all. Hope looked over her shoulder. No breaking stages unless they are haunted or rude. Flo considered. Define rude? Hope's eyes went unfocused. Too many curtains. Not enough exits. Smells like a man saying, be reasonable. Karlach barked a laugh. Wyll looked amused despite himself. That is oddly specific. Raphael was oddly specific, Hope said. Raphael was a lot of things, Karlach muttered. Dead, Yurgir said. Everyone looked at him. He shrugged. Best thing he became. Flo smiled. Oh, very nice. Yurgir glared. I know complimenting you causes pain, she said. That's why I do it. The road down to the Field of Teeth did not remain a road for long. It began as cracked black stone, then became ash, then a ridge of fused bone, then a slope of metal plates, half buried in red dust. The air thickened with heat and old smoke. Far below, the battlefield stretched in every direction, an ocean of ruin beneath a sky the colour of an open wound. The field had earned its name. Thousands of broken weapons jutted from the ground like fangs, spears, blades, hooks, bits of war machines, ribs of things that had died under wheels and fire. The whole plain looked like the mouth of some enormous beast waiting for someone foolish enough to step inside. Karlach stepped inside. Wyll followed. Of course he did. Hope made a small noise behind them. What? Karlach asked. Nothing, only the ground is thinking. Flo paused. Thinking what? Hope tilted her head as if listening to a distant conversation. Old angry thoughts. Marching thoughts. Bite, bite, bite thoughts. Yurgir drew his weapon. Ambush. The field answered. The first war machine rose from the ash like a memory deciding it had unfinished business. It had no driver, no crew, no living thing at its heart. It was all scorched iron and hooked wheels, ribs of black metal curving around an empty furnace, chains dragged behind it, its front split open into a maw of grinding blades. Karlach's eyes lit. Oh, I hate that! Wyll drew his sword. Only one? The ground shook. 3 more rose. Hope threw her hands up. Why ask? Why ask the universe things? Flo spun her garrote wire loose from her wrist. Because the universe has a theatrical sense of timing. Yurgir roared and charged. The first machine met him head-on. The impact rang across the plain hard enough to rattle Karlach's teeth. Yurgir drove one shoulder into the thing's front and shoved, hooves carving trenches through ash. The machine's blades screamed against his armour. He laughed once, low and ugly. Old work, he growled. Weak work. Then he lifted it half off the ground and slammed it sideways into another machine. Karlach whooped. Gods, remind me to stay on his good side. You have a good side? Flo called. Karlach charged before answering. The battlefield became movement. Wyll moved with her, not behind, not ahead, but in the rhythm they had built on the roads of Avernus. He was not throwing eldritch blasts now. There was no pact fire curling around his hands, no borrowed magic snapping from his fingers, but his blade flashed bright and sure. He cut chain from axle, hook from frame, limb from grasping mechanical limb. A war machine lunged toward Karlach's left. Wyll stepped in and caught its chain on his sword, turning the strike aside just enough for Karlach to bring her axe down through the exposed joint. The machine shrieked. Karlach grinned. Beautiful! Wyll ducked under a swinging blade. The timing or the structural failure? You. He nearly missed his next parry. Karlach. What battle compliment? Your timing is terrible. My timing is art. Flo vaulted onto a fallen engine, red coat flaring, garrote wire flashing like silver lightning. An imp burst from a hatch and immediately regretted its career. Flo looped the wire around its ankle, spun it once, and sent it screaming into the side of a machine. Mind the claws, darling, she called. Some of them are decorative, but the rest are terribly sincere. Hope stood on a rib of bone with chalk in both hands, drawing symbols on the air. Left gear. Left gear. It has abandonment issues. Karlach glanced at the nearest machine. Which left? Emotionally left. Wyll, without looking away from the fight, said, The exposed wheel. Why didn't she say that? She did, in Hope. Karlach split the exposed wheel in 2. The machine collapsed, belching steam. Hope clapped. See? Emotionally left. Yurgir tore the head from another construct and threw it into the distance. It exploded against a ridge. No singing, he shouted, apparently at the battlefield itself. No one had been singing. The battlefield wisely did not respond. In the tavern, Karlach paused to drink half her ale. You should have seen him, she said. Huge bastard, just ripping machines apart and yelling at the concept of music. Astarion smiled despite himself. I may have underestimated his charm. Shadowheart looked at him. What? He said. I said may have. Gale's pipe puffed out a tiny war machine with a broom chasing it. Astarion closed his eyes. I cannot bear how useful that thing is becoming for visualization. Gale looked delighted. So you admit? No. The fight on the field of teeth lasted long enough to become exhausting and short enough to be lucky. When the last machine fell, the ground beneath it cracked open. Red light spilled upward. Not flame, not exactly. Forge light. Karlach stood in the glow, chest rising and falling, axe dripping oil and sparks. The light reached for the engine beneath her breastbone like recognition. Wyll saw her sway. He was at her side before she could pretend she had not. I'm fine, she said automatically. No, he said. You are standing. Same thing sometimes. No. She looked at him then, surprised by the firmness. Wyll had blood on his cheek from a cut above his brow. His coat was torn. One horn was scraped. He looked tired and angry and terrified enough that she wanted to kiss him and fight him in equal measure. Don't do that, she said. Do what? Look like you're about to lock me in a tower for my own good. I would never. You thought about it. I thought about asking you to wait. That's worse. Yes, he said. I know. That stopped her. The forge light flickered between them. Behind them, Flo and Hope argued over whether a skull embedded in the ground was decorative or advisory. Yurgir kicked a broken machine until it stopped twitching. Karlach lowered her axe. I have to go down there. I know. You hate it. I do. You're going to say something like, I stand with you whatever you choose. I do stand with you whatever you choose. See? Hate that. Too good. Makes it harder. Wyll stepped closer. Karlach. There was something in his voice she had not heard often. Not since the docks. Not since the first night in Avernus. That raw edge stripped of polish, where the words came not from the blade or the Duke's son, or the man who always tried to be brave in a useful way. Just Wyll. I cannot lose you, he said. The words were quiet. The battlefield seemed to hush around them. Karlach's heart, engine heart, whatever the hells had made it, whatever the forge might make it, hammered once. Wyll? I know. His smile broke before it formed. I know that is not fair. I know you are not mine to keep safe by wanting it badly enough. I know love is not a cage. I know. He took a breath. But hells be damned, Karlach. I cannot stand here and pretend I am not afraid. I cannot dress it up as strategy. I cannot make it noble enough to stop hurting. I love you. I love you more than the songs ever manage cleanly. I love you when you laugh at danger and when you steal my potatoes and when you pretend fear is only another thing to punch. I love you alive, and I want a life with you after this. Karlach stared at him. Her throat closed. Wyll's eyes shone in the forge light, but he did not look away. I want mornings, he said. Ordinary ones. I want to argue about forks and listen to you threaten furniture and watch you decide every stray dog in the lower city is our responsibility. I want to learn what your hand feels like when it is not holding on because the world is trying to take something. I want time. With you. Karlach made a sound like a laugh that had tripped over a sob. Fucker, she whispered. Wyll blinked. She grabbed the front of his coat and pulled him down into a kiss. Not gentle, not careful. Not the kind of kiss bards wrote politely around. It was fire and dust and fear and love and the terrible relief of being wanted, not as a tragedy, not as a memory, not as a brave thing someone had to let go. Wanted as tomorrow. When she let him go, Wyll looked beautifully ruined. "Right," Karlach said, voice thick. "My turn." "Karlach." "No, you said your bit. Very good bit. Horribly effective. Now shut up and listen." His mouth closed. She kept her hands fisted in his coat because otherwise they might shake. "I love you," she said. "I love you so much it makes me stupid." Which is impressive because I was already doing fine there. A laugh escaped him, shaky and soft. "I want the mornings too. I want the potatoes and the forks and the dogs and you telling me we can't adopt a goat because we live in a city, even though you know I'll win eventually." "You will not?" "I absolutely will." He smiled through the fear. "I want your speeches," she said. "I want your stupid noble face when you're trying not to cry. I want your hand in mine when I wake up and the world hasn't ended. I want to come home with you and mean it." Her voice cracked. "But this is the chance, Wyll. This is the one. I can feel it." She pressed one hand to her chest. "This thing kept me alive because hell let it. But I don't want hell to be the only place I get to exist. I don't want to live in a cage just because the cage has room to walk around. If there's even a chance this forge can change that, I have to take it." Wyll closed his eyes. When he opened them, the fear was still there. So was the love. So was the choice to honour hers. "Then we take it," he said. Karlach nodded. "Together." "Together." Behind them, Flo sniffed. Karlach turned. "Are you crying?" Flo looked offended. "Absolutely not. The ash is sentimental." Hope was openly sobbing into a biscuit. Yurgir stared into the forge crack with the expression of a creature reconsidering every decision that had led him near emotions. "No singing," he said to no one. Karlach laughed, wiping at her face. "Come on then, let's go meddle with the machinery of my doom." Flo brightened. "That's the spirit." The crack in the battlefield opened onto stairs. Of course it did. They descended. The forge beneath the battlefield was enormous. It should have been impossible for anything that vast to exist underground, but Avernus had never cared for reasonable dimensions. The chamber stretched farther than torchlight, farther than comfort. Chains as thick as tree trunks hung from the ceiling. Anvils the size of houses sat half buried in ash. Rivers of molten metal ran through channels carved into black stone, feeding a central furnace that glowed white-red at the heart of the room. The air was not hot. It was purposeful. Every breath tasted of iron and old screams. Karlach felt the forge recognize her. Not as a person. As material. She hated it immediately. Wyll felt her tense. "Karlach?" "Yeah, it knows the engine." Yurgir moved past them, eyes narrowed. "Do not let it lead." "What does that mean?" Wyll asked. "It will offer the shape it knows. Weapon, soldier, core, command." Yurgir's mouth twisted. Hell makes what hell understands. Hope stepped up beside Karlach, holding the spoon like a wand. "Then we explain loudly." Flo had already crossed to a control pillar where red text crawled in rings. "Here is the valve where the heat was bound," she murmured. "Here is the seal where the soul was crowned. Here is the clause, never return." Karlach's hands curled. Flo looked back at her. "Here is the lie," she said. "Let the soldier burn." Wyll drew his sword. "Tell me where to stand." Yurgir pointed to a chain mechanism near the furnace. "There, hold when I say. If the frame shifts, lock it." Wyll went. No hesitation. Hope scrambled up a set of steps too large for her, muttering, "Open the window, not that one, it bites. No biting, bad window, we are helping." Flo unrolled a strip of red-black parchment and pinned it to the air with 2 silver needles. Karlach stood before the central platform. It was shaped like a rib cage. Of course it was. The clamps waited open. Wyll saw them. His face went white. Karlach saw and said, "Don't." He stopped, halfway between her and the mechanism. "Don't look at me like I'm already gone." His jaw worked. Then he nodded once. "Still here," he said. She smiled. "Still here." Yurgir's voice boomed through the forge. "When she steps in, the engine will wake. It will fight change. It will feed on fear if you let it." Hope popped up from behind a console. "So no fear." Everyone looked at her. She reconsidered. Some fear, polite fear, motivating fear, not snack fear. Flo nodded. "Excellent distinction." Karlach climbed onto the platform. The rib clamps rose around her. Wyll took one step forward before stopping himself. Karlach saw it, loved him for the step, loved him more for stopping. "Hey," she called. He looked at her. "I love you." His expression broke open. "I love you." "Good. Remember that when I start swearing." "I always do." The clamps closed. Pain arrived like a door kicked in. Karlach screamed. The forge woke. Everything happened at once. Chains slammed down. The central furnace roared high enough to turn the chamber white. The blueprint lines from the House of Hope flared in the air around Karlach, wrapping her body in red gold script. The engine in her chest answered, beating harder, louder, fighting every instruction that was not the old one. Heat to heart. Spark to spine. Break the seal. Name the pain. Cool the fire. Start again. Yurgir hauled on the first chain, muscles bunching, teeth bared. "Hold the line." Wyll threw his weight against the locking lever as the frame tried to twist open. The metal bucked. His boots slid. "Karlach," he shouted. "I'm busy," she shouted back, then screamed again. Hope climbed onto the console and began chalking symbols across the air faster than anyone could follow. Not weapon, not cage, not coin, not cost, not dead, not done, not yours. The forge roared. Flo read the red lines, voice sharp as broken glass. Cross out the debt, cross out the clause, strike the return command, strike the obedience loop, strike, oh clever little bastard, strike the self-consuming failsafe. "What?" Wyll yelled. "Do not let the core fold inward." Yurgir snarled. "Hammer!" Karlach could barely see through the fire. Pain narrowed the world to light and iron and the pressure around her ribs. Somewhere far away, Wyll was shouting. Hope was shrieking at machinery. Flo was laughing like she had found a knife in a cake. Yurgir was roaring instructions that sounded like avalanches. The engine fought. It had kept her alive. It had killed her slowly. It had been prison and heartbeat, curse and companion. It did not know how to become anything else. Karlach gripped the clamps around her. "Listen to me," she growled. The engine hammered. I was the coin. It hammered harder. I was the cost. Heat flooded her throat. Her vision went white. I was the girl they counted lost. The forge shrieked. Wyll heard her. He planted his feet, blood running from his palm where the lever's edge had cut him, and answered with everything in him. "Count her now!" The chamber shook. "Count every breath." Hope screamed, "Every breath counts, you great metal bastard!" Flo slapped a sigil with her bare hand and swore in 3 languages. Yurgir drove a hammer the size of a coffin lid into the central lock. "Again!" he roared. Karlach's voice tore out of her. "I am not done." The hammer fell. "I am not death." The seal broke. For 1 second, everything stopped. No sound. No heat. No pain. Karlach hung in the center of the forge with her heart open to the world. Then the fire turned blue. Wyll saw it and thought he had lost her. There was no noble thought in him then. No carefully chosen words. No heroic stance. Only terror. He left the lever. The frame lurched. Yurgir bellowed, "Hold!" Wyll was already running. Flo shouted something. Hope shouted louder. The forge bucked, chains whipping free. One caught Wyll across the side and threw him to one knee. He got up. Karlach's head had fallen forward. "Karlach!" No answer. He reached the platform. The heat should have driven him back. It did not. Or perhaps it did and he no longer cared. He climbed onto the edge of the forge, one hand shielding his face, the other reaching for her through the blue fire. "Karlach!" Her eyes opened. Not all at once. A flutter, a spark, a stubborn, furious return. "Don't," she rasped. "Yell at my engine." Wyll laughed. It came out like a sob. Behind him, Hope screamed with joy. "She is still here!" The forge answered by exploding. Not entirely. Just enough. The shockwave threw Wyll backward into Yurgir, who caught him by the collar with one hand. Flo vanished beneath a burst of smoke and reappeared on top of a console, hat askew, laughing breathlessly. Hope rolled down 3 steps, popped upright and shouted, "I meant to do that!" Karlach dropped to her knees on the platform. The clamps opened. Her chest glowed. Not white hot, not red like a warning. Gold, low and steady beneath the scars. The sound of the engine had changed. It no longer hammered like a prisoner. It beat. Slow. Strong. Alive. Wyll stumbled toward her. This time no one stopped him. "Karlach!" She lifted her head. Her face was streaked with soot and tears. Her hair smoked. One eyebrow might have been slightly on fire. She grinned. "Still here." Wyll dropped to his knees in front of her and caught her as she leaned forward. Not because she was falling, because she reached for him. He held her like he had wanted to since the first scream and had refused because she had asked him to trust her choice. Karlach pressed her forehead to his. "Still mine," she whispered. His hand shook against her back. "Still time," he said. She laughed then, and the sound filled the forge, rough and impossible and alive. Hope sobbed harder into both hands. Flo sat on the console, hat in her lap, looking for once as if she had no clever thing to say. Hope stood very still, biscuit forgotten in both hands. Flo sat on the edge of the console, hat in her lap, her painted smile absent for once. "Do you think it will hold?" Flo asked quietly. Hope looked at Karlach, at the low gold glow beneath the scars, at Wyll holding her as though love could steady metal if it tried hard enough. "For always?" Hope asked. Flo's mouth twisted. "Nothing holds for always, darling." Hope nodded, solemn and strange. "No," she said, "but maybe it holds for breakfast, for windows, for dogs, for one more morning and then another if they are greedy." Flo looked at her. Hope's smile trembled. Maybe that is what living is. Not forever, just not stolen early. For once, Flo had no clever answer. Across the forge, Karlach laughed into Wyll's shoulder, rough and alive. Flo put her hat back on. "Well," she said softly, "that will have to do." Hope hugged the biscuit to her chest. "It is a very big little thing," she said. Yurgir stared at Karlach's chest, then at the forge, then at the broken hammer in his hand. "The song will get worse now," he said. Flo looked at him. Then she smiled. "Oh, let it." In the tavern, no one spoke for a long time after Karlach reached that part. The rain had slowed outside, the hearth had burned low. Somewhere in the room, a patron laughed too loudly and was shushed by someone who did not know why they were shushing. Karlach sat with Wyll's hand in hers, thumb tracing the old scar across his knuckles. Shadowheart's eyes were bright. though she would have denied it under oath. Gale had forgotten to smoke his pipe. It rested between his fingers, emitting tiny gold sparks that formed and reformed the words, "Still here," above the table. Astarion stared at them. Then he cleared his throat and took a very precise sip of wine. "Well," he said, "that was needlessly dramatic." Karlach smiled at him. "Yeah?" "Excessive, overwrought, practically operatic." Wyll's mouth curved. Astarion lifted his glass. "I liked it." Shadowheart laughed softly. Gale blinked several times and looked down at his pipe as if only just remembering he owned it. "I should very much like to see those schematics." "No," Karlach said. "Not to recreate them." "No." "To study them." "No." "To ensure there are no lingering—" "Gale," Wyll said gently. Gale stopped, then he nodded. "Right, yes, quite right." The pipe gave a small puff. A tiny diagram appeared anyway. Astarion leaned over and blew it apart. "Thank you," Karlach said. "My pleasure." Shadowheart raised her cup. "To still here," she said. One by one, they lifted their glasses. "To still here," Wyll said. Karlach looked around the table. At Shadowheart's quiet smile, Gale's damp eyes, Astarion pretending not to care with all the force of his soul, Wyll beside her, warm and real, and no longer hidden behind the fear of losing her. Her heart beat beneath her scars. Not a prison. Not a countdown. A promise. "To still mine," she said. Wyll squeezed her hand. "To still time." Their glasses touched. For a moment it was enough. Then Astarion set his down. "Now, forgive me for ruining the tenderness, but did you say Mizora was still alive at this point?" Karlach's smile sharpened. Wyll's eyes changed. The tavern felt the shift. "Oh, yes," Karlach said. Astarion leaned back, pleased. "Good. I was hoping someone would suffer." Wyll turned his glass slowly between his hands. "Mizora had not finished with us," he said. Karlach's grin went feral. "And we were definitely not finished with her." Gale's pipe released a puff of smoke shaped like a tiny furnace. Karlach pointed at it. "See? Even the pipe knows." Wyll closed his eyes. "We are not calling it that." "Calling what?" Shadowheart asked. Karlach opened her mouth. Wyll sighed. Astarion smiled into his wine. And the story, having walked through fire and come out breathing, turned at last toward the devil with the fine print.
They're under the ash mark. Blueprints with bite marks. Don't let them smell your fear! These are the schematics.
Old work, war work.
That's my engine.
That is what they made of your heart.
Under the stone, under the scar, under the bones of the old blood war, down where the war drums forgot how to die, the forge keeps breathing under a red sky.
Lines in the ledger, gears in the flame, every cut numbered, every bolt named. This was no accident, no battlefield art. They drew out a prison and called it a heart.
Don't look at me gently, don't lower your eyes. I have lived with this thunder, I have learned its lies. If there's one chance to change it, one way through the pain, then open the furnace, I'll walk in again.
To the forge beneath the battlefield,
To the fire under bone,
to the place where broken engines
dream of being known.
bring the hammer, bring the spark.
Bring the map and bring the steel.
We are going down together to the forge
Beneath the battlefield. East stair, black door. Third scream left.
Second scream.
They moved it.
Rude.
the valve where the heat was bound. Here is the seal where the soul was crowned. Here is the claws never return. Here is the lie, let the soldier burn.
Cut the chain, break the seal, hold the frame, turn the wheel. If the Corwic's angry, do not let it feed. Hell makes weapons hungry, do not let them lead.
Tell me where to stand, tell me what to hold. I have lost the borrowed magic, but I still have my blade.
And I still have this body they thought they had made. What if it breaks me?
What if it wins?
What if I open the cage
And the fire floods in?
What if the thing that kept me alive is the thing I must lose to survive?
Then I will be here, then I will stay. Not as your savior, not in your way. Hand at the ready, blade at the door. Not to decide for you, only to fight for more.
Turn the wheel, hey, hold the line, hey,
Heat to heart and spark to spine. Break the seal, name the pain. Cool the fire, start again. Open the window, not that one, it bites.
read the red line,
Cross out the debt,
hammer down.
do not kneel.
No more cages.
Built from pain, heart in the fire, eyes on the dawn. If this is the price of tomorrow, then come on!
Now,
Breathe, darling,
Karlach.
do it.
Turn the wheel, hold the line, heat to heart and spark to spine. Break the seal, name the pain.
Cool the fire, start again.
I was the coin, I was the cost.
I was the
I
girl,
was the girl that counted lost. But count me now, count every breath.
I am not done.
I am not deaf.
She is the fire,
She is the name.
she is the light.
No devil can claim.
Hold fast, hold true.
Let the old terms fall.
No crown, no contract,
No hell owns all. At the forge beneath the battlefield,
where the old machine still.
will the old machine still need?
We took the heart they
Made a cage
and taught the cage to heal.
with the hammer, with the spark.
With the map and with the steel,
We found a road through ruin.
hide the forge beneath the battlefield.
Not just breathing,
Not just breathing,
not just burning,
not just burning,
not just surviving.
not just surviving.
I am returning.
Is she
Karlach.
still here? She is still here.
The psalm will get worse now. Oh, let it.
Still here,
Still mine.
still time.
Still